All right, kabooms are booming right now. Prices are climbing, collectors are buzzing, but I found something in my research that might have you look at this 2024 vertical kaboom set differently. Now, before we get into it, let's take a quick recap if you didn't see my last video to get caught up to speed on exactly where we're at in this kaboom boom. This past week on the Panini Blockchain, 9 out of the top 10 NFT sales were all kabooms, and together they totaled a whopping $446,500. And that's not even all. There's actually more. Now, if we zoom out a little and look at these sales over the past 30 days on the Panini blockchain, we're going to find that 19 of the top 25 NFT sales were all kabooms, and they totaled a whopping $737,751. Well, I think it's safe to say that the kabooms right now are absolutely running the show, but here's where it gets even crazier. A couple weeks ago, I made a post to highlight how I think the price gap between the physical LeBron James Kaboom was narrowing to its likeness as an NFT on the Panini blockchain. See, at the time, the highest sale for the LeBron James Gold on the Panini blockchain was $16,250. The highest sale that I found at auction on eBay was $37,600 for the physical card. Well, it didn't take long for that price gap to narrow and almost completely disappear. Well, in the week preceding, after making that post on the Panini blockchain, we saw a LeBron James Gold Kaboom 3 out of 10 sell for $26,000, a 7 out of 10 sell for $30,000, and a 9 out of 10 sell for $36,500. In a world where us NFT collectors are used to seeing the physical cards sell for 5, sometimes 10 times higher than the NFT, it appears that the blockchain is catching up faster than we may have anticipated. Now, I know some collectors on the Panini blockchain probably have whiplash right now, considering what's been going on, but in a good way. What it shows is that more and more collectors are starting to notice sports card NFTs on the Panini blockchain, and that's a good thing. Now, to wrap up this video, let's take a quick look on comparing the NFT to the physical version real fast. And then also, like I teased at the beginning of the video, I came across some new data that might make you look at these vertical kabooms completely differently than you're looking at them now. So hold on to that. I'll get to that in 1 second. But if we look at the PSA pop report for the LeBron James vertical kaboom, we see that 23 are rated PSA 10, 24 have been graded PSA 9. Now, if we jump over to the Panini blockchain, we see that 25 of these NFTs have been minted. That means there will only be 25 of these across the world, and that's it. There's not going to be any more minted. That's the cap that they've put on this particular NFT. Now, technically right now, the LeBron James PSA 10 is more scarce. There's 23. However, I did go to eBay and I looked at the last 60 days of sales and noticed that there were 9 of these LeBron James in the raw version that have sold on eBay, anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. So if we go back to PSA, we can see that of 47, 23 were PSA 10, 24 were PSA 9. So it has a 50% gem rate at this point. So if even, I don't know, 6 out of those 9 that were sold go through PSA and 2 or 3 of them are graded PSA 10, well, you've already hit the 25 to match the NFT mint count, or maybe even surpass at that point to be 26 or 27. To me, it's kind of weird to even have this card sell on eBay in its raw state between $2,000 to $4,000. That's a lot of money to buy a raw card. So imagine how many of those particular cards are transacting at sports card shops, just between traders, sports card shows that will be coming through PSA in the coming months. So even though they got them on even though the PSA 10 has it on the NFT on Scarcity right now, we don't necessarily know if it will be in the future. And that is the problem. You don't know. Whereas with the Panini blockchain, the NFT, you do know. And if we take it one step further and we go to the eBay sales, we see that a PSA 10 sold for $9,300 and it had multiple bids and it sold on August 31st. Whereas if we go to the NFT, the last sale, we'll go to recent sales, the last sale was $6,000. Prior to that, $4,999, then $4,000. But at least there's transparency here. You know that there's only going to be 25, and you can see every transaction happening. On top of that, every single penny that you put into the NFT goes into the NFT. There's no third party like a PSA that has a premium on top of the collectible itself. Whereas, like I said before, the raw cards seem to be trading between $2,000 to $4,000. So if a PSA 10 is selling for $9,300, that means you're putting, what, 2x on the actual collectible itself, just for that PSA 10 plastic grading, that seems like a lot premium to put on that particular grade. And again, you don't know how many are actually going to end up in population. You're investing, collecting, whatever you want to call it, $10,000 of your money into something that you don't even actually know how many are out there. Like that to me is a scary proposition. At least with NFTs, it's perfectly crystal clear. There are 25. There's 25. However much you want to value that at least you know there's 25. Now, to lend itself to the new data I came across. And you can tell me if this is new to you or if it's known or if I'm an idiot and this isn't actually that interesting. But normally you'd think of the vertical as being more scarce and more valuable than the horizontal. Well, when I went to look at the PSA Pop Report, I noticed that the horizontal has a total grade count of 344, where the vertical is 853. That sounded a little weird to me. So I pulled up the NFL, the recent Kabooms for the Panini NFL. I did have it up and I clicked it off. So let me get that back real fast. Kaboom. So for Kaboom, for the horizontal for the NFL, there's 8,656 total graded and 1,050. So 9 times more horizontals than there are verticals. Whereas when we look at the basketball, so far, the horizontals are over twice as scarce, almost 3 times, right around 2.5 times as scarce. So it makes me think, okay, we'll dive in real fast before I go on, just to compare apples to apples. We'll look for the LeBron James. There's 12. There's 12 PSA 10 horizontals compared to 23 verticals. That's almost half. That doesn't make sense. If we compare that to Jaden Daniels' horizontal has a total PSA 10 population of 338, whereas his vertical has a total PSA population of 14. I mean, that's like a 30x, 25 to 30x difference. So it makes me think, did Panini pull a fast one? Did they actually do a similar print count on the horizontal that they did on the vertical? And since they're in the retail boxes, does that make them actually harder to pull if retail has a much, much bigger print count than the hobby boxes? So is it the horizontal you actually want to collect because they're just as scarce, but possibly more scarce because they're harder to pull because they're involved in a higher print run than the hobby box and the vertical? Does that make any sense? Am I onto something here? And if so, are people sleeping on the horizontal Kaboom set of the NBA? Is that going to actually trade for as much, if not more, than the vertical? I don't know. Maybe this doesn't make sense. Maybe there's a reason for it, and if so, leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this content, if the NFTs, sports card NFTs, or just in general, kind of how I look at the hobby market, whether it's physical or NFT, this interests you, please follow along. We generally only talk about NFTs, but we have to bring in the physical hobby world as well, sometimes to do some comparisons or, just fun things like that. So like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.